Adoption of new technologies to develop smart cities usually requires high investment and long payback periods. How do you think we can encourage more cities to adopt these technologies? And any one of you can jump in. Go ahead.
Well, this is an excellent question. I can say that within GE we spend about a couple $2 billion annually on developing new technologies for smart cities. And usually it's a high-risk investment because the truth is, again, we hope for adoption at scale. However, in the last couple of years, I can tell we've seen increase in the interest of many cities or regions, because we have to also keep in mind that many smart city developments are embedded in the region. Very often regions drive smart city initiatives. We see a lot of development around new projects related to smart cities, and I can say that new adoption of technology is not an issue from my perspective as a big company. From my perspective, it's alignment of the stakeholders. Dlatego, że, because if you look carefully on what is happening with the technologies, city will have different interests, stakeholders will have different approach to smart cities. Region or government, regional government will have different approach. So alignment around understanding is critical technology. There is money in development, and eventually we'll find scale.
Thank you. Any further comment here? Yes?
Yeah, I think just to add to what you just mentioned, I think, the first move for going towards any kind of smart community development or city development would be really developing a consensus of where do we want to go in terms of what do you want the city to look at in a 5-year or 10-year period or what. So I think if that roadmap of where we want to go in terms of what should be the mix of energy, what should be the way we manage our waste, or what are other elements, I think once we, if governments are able to set that vision and a mandate, then technologies and solutions will find their way to get there. So I think the first step would be really to at least have that mandate of what do you want to get to.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
It's funny because it's a finance question, but it's a leadership answer. In that, if the city if there is no clear understanding of what should this city look like in 20 years, then you can't work back to any sort of financing solutions. And what you get is, in the absence of real clear vision and leadership, you get lots of fuzzy talk about PPP, which can mean anything and it can mean nothing. And so what you'll have is, in city after city, you'll have small amounts of money being put aside to invest. So you'll have $100 million or something, which feels like a lot of money. But in terms of the transformation of major, even minor cities, it's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's playing around the edges. You can use it for a pilot, but it doesn't equate to the transformation of the city from the way that people live now and the way people are transported now and the way that they're going to, that the building stock will look in a 20 to 30 year time frame. And so absolutely right, Mr. Tanti, you've got to start with some understanding of the end point, and then that then has to be translated into the right legislation, the right building codes, the right long-term plans for transportation, and only then should one even ask, where does the money come from? Because at that point, it'll become pretty clear and people will invest against that sort of clarity of the investing environment. And in some cities around the world, you have that. And in the majority, you don't. And so, if you look at the 500 pilots, I would venture to suggest that 450 of them should never have been started because they really don't know where they want to end up.
Very good point.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. You could say it's not the technical engineering, it's the social engineering that's critical here in terms of the capability to plan and to organize and bring parties together and allow business development, business models in a context where it makes sense. And there's huge challenges there in the sense that a lot of the externalities, the costs we generate are not priced. difficult, as was said, to allocate the benefits and make them come back to those who provide the solutions, etc. The one element of hope there, or of opportunity, I would say, is that we are not just retrofitting existing cities, of course, and that from a Western perspective that would be the case. I would say that's probably the high cost part of the overall solution. The opportunity lies in the development of new cities, because all those people who are going to live in cities, whether it's adjacent to existing cities or actually like in China and will be the case in India, new cities to be developed from scratch. That's where a big part of the opportunity lies, and to think there about the type of city you want to develop, and then not just go at the extreme of complete carbon neutral cities, etc. Those pilots, they're very interesting in terms of tantalizing our thinking. But if you really want to go at scalable, timely developments, you have to base yourself on affordable existing technologies as well, and bring them together in a way that has not been done yet.
Well, I have to a little bit disagree with that, because technology will be as affordable as the scale. But I have to agree with Mr. Michael, because 80% of the discussion around smart cities usually start with the question, what technology? Technology, it means to deliver value. Only few start discussion, what is the long-term value, short-term value, how we are going to measure that value, how we are going to deliver that value, and technology should enable this. Technology eventually will find its place, will be affordable, will get the scale. Yeah, we need a standardization, we need a lot of stuff in between. But I have to agree. Most of the discussion with any government, city government or regional government, starts, so what technology should I deploy to be called a smart city?
Just want to add on that as well. I think ultimately there'll be two drivers. One of them, of course, is the customer creating a real value added that the customer can appreciate. And then at the end of the day, making money and coming up with a viable business model. And if we think about big technological revolutions that we've experienced in our lifetime, be it the introduction of smartphones or the introduction of flat screen televisions, you can think of whole things like that. There was no real discussion about what does the government need to do? Do we need to pilot it? Do we need to start coming up with demonstrations to convince people that that's the right solution? So I think if we do that too much, in terms of smart cities and smart technologies, we're obviously focusing on the wrong technologies. These need to be adopted by customers at the end of the day.
True. Okay, one final point on this question from Michael.
I think this is a really key, this kind of developed versus developing is a really key point to get to the bottom of it, because in the developed world, it's all about retrofit, and there's this sort of idea that it'll be somehow easier in the developing world because the cities are new. But, you know, for most of the developing world, essentially outside China, how do these cities rise up? How do they start? Well, you start with a favela, you start with an unofficial dwelling, you start with 1 million people move to Lagos, or they move to Abuja, or they go to, and then you scramble and you reactively try and figure out how to deal with the problems created. This idea that somehow you're going to implement all of these newest technologies in the developing world first, because that's where it's easier. I don't know any technology, except for maybe mobile payments in Africa, which started first in the developing world and then rolled out to the developed world. So I think that I think we've got to try to leapfrog, but it's not a given that it'll be easier than retrofitting. At the end of the day, the money is in the developed world. The place where people care about green and clean is in the developed world. The technology companies are in the developed world. And so anybody says that we should, prioritize the developing world, I think there's you have a little bit of a job to convince me.